You dare.
The package that arrived too late in a quiet town outside Iloilo. There's a small post office tucked between an old bakery and a closed pharmacy. Most people don't notice it. It looks abandoned until you step inside and hear the bell ring even if no one's at the counter. Sometimes a package arrives with no sender name and no return address, wrapped in brown paper tied with a faded black string. The kind of package no one remembers ordering. On a call center agent received one at her boarding house late. Afternoon, no knock, no delivery slip, just there waiting by her door. Her name was written on it, perfectly spelled, but in a style she didn't recognize. Inside was a cassette tape. No label, just a sticky note that said play before midnight. She didn't own a cassette player, but the boarding house had one in the storage room, old dusty, left by a previous tenant, Curiosity one. And she played it. The sound was faint static, followed by a low humming, then her voice saying things she never said in places she's never been. She stopped it after a minute, heart racing, put the tape back and tried to sleep. At 2:06 a.m., she woke up to humming the same tune from the tape coming from under her bed. Not loud, just enough to make her freeze. When she looked, the tape player was there even though she left it downstairs. And the cassette was spinning. She unplugged it, threw it in the trash, went back to bed. But the humming didn't stop the next morning. The package was back at her door, resealed, string tight, sticky note rewritten, play it again. We didn't finish. She moved out that afternoon. 3 weeks later, another tenant in the same house received a similar package, same handwriting, same note. This time, it was a DVD, same voice, different person. The landlord now warns new boarders: if you receive a package without a sender, don't open it, don't touch it, pretend it's not yours. Because once you play the message, something plays you back, and it keeps playing until your voice no longer belongs to you. The prayer they told me not to say. There's a village near the border of Zambales and Pampanga, where the people still pray using words older than Tagalog, older than Latin, words that were passed down from voices, not written in books, only whispered, they say. There's one prayer never to be spoken aloud, even during storms, even at funerals, not because it's cursed, but because it's incomplete. Lola Minang was the last one who knew it fully. She warned people never to repeat it, especially during Holy Week, especially near water. But her great-grandson Louis found it written in a folded piece of paper, hidden in her Bible, old ink, fading, 7 lines written without punctuation. The last line unfinished, like someone had been interrupted mid-word. He was a college student home for the break, curious, bored, thinking it was myth. He read it aloud in the garden just before midnight. The night was still, the dogs didn't bark, and the air felt too heavy for April. He went to bed early and woke up to the sound of water trickling beneath his room, even though there were no pipes beneath the floor. His feet were wet. He dreamed of someone sitting on his chest, not heavy, not painful, just there, whispering the last line of the prayer directly into his ear. But he couldn't remember the words. When he woke up the next night, the water sound grew louder. He opened his door and saw muddy footprints leading out to the field behind the house. The same field where a shallow well had been sealed decades ago, the footprints stopped at the well, and inside. He saw no water, just a reflection of someone who wasn't him looking up slowly with his face. He stopped sleeping. By the fourth night, he began mumbling the words in his sleep. His cousins heard him repeating the lines, then giggling like a child between phrases. His grandmother's Bible was found on the table open to a blank page, and the prayer had rewritten itself. This time completed the last line, glowing faint red under candlelight. He left the house the next day, never came back, never answered. Messages the villagers don't speak about him. Any more they sealed the well again, surrounded it with salt-planted banana trees all around, and warn every child never to copy words they don't understand. They say prayers are bridges, and some lead to places that were sealed for a reason. The bell that rang at 3:01 in a sleepy barangay outside Nueva Ecija. There is an old chapel no longer used for mass. The windows are broken, the roof leaks, and the altar is covered in dust. But the bell still hangs above the wooden tower, silent, heavy, rusted. They say it hasn't been touched in over 20 years. And yet every now and then it rings, once, just once, never twice, always at exactly 3:01 a.m. No wind, no storm, no hands pulling the rope. It just rings, and when it does, someone from the village disappears. Always one, never more. People say it started after a storm drowned the old priest and 3 children in the river during a field trip. The current was too fast, the water too black. They were never found. After that, the bell began to sound. The first to vanish was a woman selling pandazal. She was seen walking toward the chapel in her nightgown, barefoot, smiling. No one stopped her, because no one was awake except one old man who watched from his window, unable to move, as if something in the air held his breath. She was never found. Her slippers were at the door of the chapel. One, still warm. The second was a boy who had just turned 10. His dog barked non-stop until the bell rang again. And then silence. They found the leash outside the chapel tied around the broken gate. The boy's name was never spoken again in town. Now people avoid looking at the chapel. After midnight they cover their mirrors. They sleep facing walls. They turn their clocks to 3:02, so they never see the time when the bell might ring. But once you hear it, you can't unhear it. A farmer named Jun said he dreamt of the bell for weeks before it actually rang. When it finally did, he woke up in the chapel, cold, wet, barefoot, but with no memory of walking there. And from that night on he never spoke again. Some say it's the priest calling souls to finish a sermon never delivered. Others say it's not a priest at all, but something older wearing robes. It doesn't deserve. Whatever it is, the bell keeps ringing, and the chapel stays quiet until the next name is chosen. The closet that asked for a name in an old house, passed down through 4 generations. There is a wooden closet that has never been moved, tall, carved, dark brown, standing in the same corner of the same bedroom. Since the 1940s, families came and went, children were born, old people died. But the closet stayed untouched, doors never opened unless absolutely needed. Tita Nora once said the closet could speak. but only if the room was silent, and only if someone was inside it. Of course, no one believed her until Clara moved in. She was 16, sent to live with her Lola after her parents moved abroad. Curious, quiet, a little brave, and a little too willing to test the stories. She found the closet strange from the start, too cold inside, too deep for its size. When she tapped the back panel, it echoed like a hallway one rainy evening after the power went out. She sat inside with her phone flashlight pointed at the ceiling, door half closed just for fun. She whispered hello. At first there was nothing, then a voice whispered back, not an echo, not a recording, but a new voice, soft and old and dry. Say my name, it said. Clara asked, who are you? Silence. Then again, say my name. She laughed, thought it was her imagination. Then something touched her knee gently. She jumped out, heart racing, phone screen cracked, flashlight flickering. There were fingerprints on her jeans, not hers, not adult-sized. She told her Lola, who just closed her eyes, and said, you heard it too. Then her grandmother said the voice belonged to a child who once hid that closet during the war, but no one ever found her body, only that the door was locked from the inside, and the air inside smelled like rust and flowers. Now the child waits for someone to say her name so she can leave, but no one knows it, and every time someone enters the closet she asks again. And each time they stay too long they come out remembering something that never happened to them. Clara started dreaming in black and white, started speaking in Ilocano. Even though she never learned it, she moved out. But says she still hears the voice when she opens any closet, especially when the light bulb flickers. The carousel that only turns at night in the corner of an abandoned amusement park in Batangas. There stands an old carousel, rusted, faded, overgrown, with vines, the horses chipped and bent, the music box broken, they say. It stopped working decades ago after a fire shut down the park. No one was hurt, no structures destroyed. But 3 children were never found, all from different families, all on the same ride, all missing on the same night. The carousel was left where it stood, slowly swallowed by time. But sometimes at night passers-by say they hear the soft sound of calliope music drifting through the trees, not loud, not cheerful, just slow and wrong, like the notes are dragging themselves forward. And when people come close, the lights flicker on one by one, yellow, dim, blinking in a rhythm that doesn't match the music. The horses begin to move, not in circles, but in small twitching motions, heads turning slightly, eyes glowing faint red, as if watching the fence, waiting for someone to climb. In one night, a boy named Elia dared to enter with a flashlight and a phone. He stepped through the cracked gate, past the rusted popcorn cart, past the broken ticket booth, straight to the carousel. It was silent still. He stepped closer, touched the side. The music began, soft, slow. Cracked, the lights came on one by one. He didn't run. He pulled out his phone and took a video. It only recorded silence and darkness. But to him, the horses were moving slowly, turning toward him one by one, their mouths slightly open, teeth too real, eyes too human. Then he felt the platform tremble. The ride began to spin slowly in reverse. He turned to leave, but the entrance was gone, not hidden, gone like the path erased itself behind him. He shouted. The music got louder. He fainted when he woke up. He was outside the fence, but the carousel was off again, still silent. His phone had no footage, only static. His arm had a bruise shaped like a small hand. He never went back. Now locals say if you hear music near the edge of the woods, don't look, don't follow, don't speak, and whatever you do, don't answer when the horses start to sing, because the carousel still remembers the names of the children who rode it last. And it's still looking for one more. Something grabbed his arm from behind, not strong, not painful, but the laundry that wasn't hers in a quiet subdivision in Cavite. There's a two-story house with a laundry line that always has clothes hanging even. When no one lives there, neighbors have seen the house change owners 6 times in 4 years, each family moving out without explanation, leaving most of their furniture behind the last owner. Was a woman named Dory, single, quiet, often seen sweeping the yard and watering the plants even at night. One thing people noticed was how she always had laundry on the line: dresses, skirts, blouses, all too small for her size, all childlike, pale yellow, baby pink, light blue, even though she lived alone. Sometimes they moved even when there was no wind. One night during a storm, the electricity went out across the block. But the light in Dory's laundry area stayed on, flickering. A neighbor glanced out the window and saw a child standing under the clothesline, staring up at the swaying garments, arms raised like she was waiting for something to fall. But there was no child living in that house the next day. The storm passed, and Dory was gone. The police found no sign of struggle, but her slippers were outside, one overturned, still damp. The clothes were still there, freshly washed, swaying in sunlight. Since then, people avoid passing the house after dark. Those who do say they sometimes see the clothes moving, as if someone is walking between them, invisible but present. And if you stare too long, you'll hear a giggle, low and soft, followed by the faint snap of wet fabric being wrung by unseen hands. Now the house remains for sale. Grass growing tall, laundry line always full, and the wind never quite natural when it passes through the cloth. Some say the clothes don't belong to Dory. Some say they belong to whoever lived there before. But no one really knows how many owners came and went, only that the house always keeps something left behind, always hung out to dry. The radio that only played after midnight in the outskirts of Laguna. There's an old apartment complex built in the 80s with rusty gates, flickering hallway lights, and a rooftop where no one hangs laundry anymore. Unit 3B has been empty for years. But every night around 12:30, the sound of a radio can be heard coming from inside, soft, crackling, slow music. Not modern, not clear, just old melodies drifting through the cement walls. It's always the same song, no lyrics, just humming. The tenants have tried to ignore it, but one night a man named Joel, who had just moved into 3C, decided to knock on the door of 3B, thinking someone had broken in. He knocked. Once the music stopped, he waited, no answer. He knocked again. This time the door opened slightly, but no one was there. He peeked in, saw nothing but darkness and an old radio on the floor, glowing faint green. He stepped back, and the door slowly closed on its own. The next morning, he asked the landlord, who just shook his head and said the room had been sealed for years. No one had the key. Joel didn't sleep that night. At 12:34 a.m., the music returned, louder this time, like it was just outside his door. And the humming sounded familiar. He listened closer. It was his mother's voice. She had passed away 3 years ago. He opened the door. Nothing was there, but his slippers were turned the wrong way. And the hallway light was out. The next night the music came again, same time. But the song was different, and the humming was his own voice. This time low, slow, slightly off tune. He unplugged his appliances, turned off everything, but the sound wouldn't stop. He started recording it, but his phone would only capture silence. Then he stopped sleeping completely. He tried to leave, but each time he packed his bags, they'd be unpacked the next morning without memory of how neighbors say. He began humming during the day, standing still in the hallway, eyes closed. After 3 days, he was gone. No trace, no noise, only the radio still playing behind the locked door of unit 3B. Now every new tenant is told the same thing: never knock on the third door down the left hall, never listen for the song, never respond to the humming. Because once the music matches your voice, you don't belong to silence anymore. The mirror from the rain in a quiet barangay tucked between rice fields and forgotten roads. There's an old wooden house that floods easily whenever it rains. The roof leaks, the floor creaks. But one thing never moves: a tall mirror leaning against the wall of the main bedroom. No one remembers who put it there, or where it came from, only that it was already inside when the house was bought second-hand over 30 years ago. They say the mirror never reflects things exactly the way they are. Sometimes a chair is missing in the reflection. Sometimes a door is slightly open even when closed. But only when it rains. One stormy night, a boy named Leo stayed there with his uncle. The power was out, and the only light came from the candle beside the mirror. He looked once, and saw his own reflection, looked again, and saw himself smiling even though his face was still. He blinked, and the reflection didn't. He told his uncle, who said, "Don't look during rain. It watches through water." Leo didn't sleep well. He stood up, slowly walked to the edge of the frame and peeked behind it, but there was nothing, just wood and damp air. Then he looked back into the mirror and saw water rising behind his reflection, not in the room, only inside the mirror. It reached his knees, then his chest. His reflection began to panic, banging its hands against the glass. Around 2 a.m., he woke up to dripping sounds, not from the ceiling, but from behind the mirror, slow, constant tapping like wet fingers on glass. But Leo was dry. He touched the mirror, and his fingers came back wet. The candle went out. He screamed when the lights returned in the morning. Leo was gone. His slippers were in front of the mirror, neatly placed. The floor beneath slightly wet. Now they say when it rains and lightning flashes, the mirror shows two faces, yours and someone behind you, watching, mouth open, eyes wide, drowning slowly again. And again, some believe the mirror is a window for something that needs help. Others think it's a trap for anyone curious enough to look too long. But the elders only say one thing: cover all the mirrors before the rain begins, or risk leaving something behind that doesn't come back with you.
If you enjoyed this terrifying story, let us know in the comments below. Hit that like button to help us bring more cursed tales and dark legends to life. Don't forget to share this video with your friends, but warn them first. And if you dare, subscribe to this channel, because here in Pinoy Phobia, the horror never ends. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next cursed story, spine-chilling folklore, or true paranormal encounter from the shadows of the Philippines. Remember, some stories are meant to be heard, but others are meant to be warnings. Thank you for watching, and remember, whatever happens, don't look back.